I'm going to start by saying I think the reason I'm here is that I have probably spent more on a single individual as in medicine than has ever been done before. My brother Stephen is shown here in this picture, and most of you or many of you know the story. He was diagnosed with ALS in 1998. And I'm going to start by saying, why would you want to spend less on health? Like, do we talk about wanting to spend less on entertainment? Do we talk about wanting to spend less on cars or transportation or housing? It's a dumb question. What would be more important than health, right? So the idea that we're talking about cost or the percentage is really stupid. And it comes from this friend named Tom DeLay, who sat at a meeting. We all sit around, and he's a venture capitalist. He said, what sector talks about capturing less of the economy? You guys are crazy. And I think it was a really profound insight. It has nothing to do with what we spend. That's not the problem. I actually think we should spend more money. Stephen, in the work I did in my foundation and caring for him through his ALS, we probably spent $50 million trying to make him live longer. And I think we could have and should have spent more. I'm very critical of how we spent the money, whether we got value from that, but I wanted to spend more. And I want to start with that as just the concept, that I think the whole context of cost is just a dumb way to think about it. So I want to talk about cost. So immediately here, who here is thinking something's really expensive when you see that logo, right? Like a Lamborghini is an expensive item. So let's look at that in context. It is. That's about a $200,000, $250,000 automobile. It can go 200 miles an hour. They also make tractors, and it also costs about $200,000. And is that the right amount of money for something for its purpose? So the cost of the object is irrelevant. The object on the right is necessary to make our food. We use things derived from that instrument every single day. And no one would argue that that tractor was too costly. It's the right value for its purpose. And so it's, again, the whole concept of cost is wrong here. So let's go to drugs. There's been a lot of press. And by the way, I don't work for either Gilead or Teva. But Sovaldi has been criticized for costing too much. This is an $84,000 drug to go a full course. That pill, the little pill down there, costs $1,000 per pill. Now I know what it costs to make it. It's about 3 cents, right? So there's a very large markup on that pill. And then on the right, you have a drug that's an injectable that's used to treat MS. It costs about $54,000 a year to take that drug on the right. So the drug on the right, because it costs less, must be the better deal, right? Clearly the better deal. Without question, right? It costs less, but it's not. The drug on the left cures a disease that prevents you from having sex life, causes liver failure that requires transplants and replacement. It causes incredible healthcare costs. And in 12 weeks, you go from being in a course to have a shortened life, lower quality of relationships, inability to do things, to being cured. Most of us would pay cash for that. It's a great value. It's a stupid target. On the right is a drug that costs $54,000 a year that if it does anything, and I've read all the data, it does about 5% shift on a disease that is terrible and devastating, but you take the drug for 6-7 years. So you're talking about $200,000-$300,000 to maybe make you be 5% more functional over that time frame. It's a terrible value. So it has nothing to do with cost at all, and we have to get over that as a context. We could talk about this in the context of whether an MRI causes more harm or good. I mean, yes, it detected my cancer, but it also made 50 people go through an unnecessary surgery that caused them, some of them to even die from the complications of that, to find something that wasn't there. So this gets to sort of, to my mind, the biggest problem in thinking about cost in medicine. Let's talk about the null hypothesis. What happens if you do nothing? What happens if you do nothing? If you have an in situ ductal carcinoma and you're a woman with breast cancer, if you do nothing, does 98% of the time nothing happen? Because that might be what happens. If you have a bypass, if you have a 60% blocked artery and you're asymptomatic, you must get a bypass because it's going to sort of reduce your heart attack risk, except it doesn't. Doing nothing is the best course of action in that case. And there's very specific examples throughout medicine. And I'm giving the examples we know about. The problem is we never ask the null hypothesis. We don't look at it. And so the reality is it has nothing to do with whether medicine costs too much. It has to do with we do the wrong thing. And this is the real question. I hear the cost analysis in medicine about how do we do what we do well. And that's the problem, is that we actually don't know what to do. We don't know what not to do. We don't even ask the question about what not to do. I think the question for fixing cost in medicine is how do we do the right thing? How do we do the right thing? And the problem is we don't know what the right thing is. The amount of evidence that we operate under is tiny. I was at an IOM meeting maybe 5-6 years ago, and we were talking about evidence-based medicine. We have to deploy evidence-based medicine. We have to take what we know and bring it to medicine. And I listened to about 2 hours of this, and I really couldn't stand it. I said, guys, there is no evidence. There's almost nothing that we use that's actual evidence on how to make the decisions. And you know what I know as an engineer? If there's no actual evidence, start from baseline and actually measure what you're doing and whether it does any good. So I don't care about evidence. I care about measurement-based medicine. Let's figure out how we generate value for every individual that receives care at the time of care. And from that, we can figure out the right thing to do and generate value and build things that actually make a difference. Thank you.